As Eric mentioned, I'm the Director of Strategic Insight for Splash Media, which means I shouldn't be smart enough to not moderate a panel right before happy hour. But here we are, and we got a really exciting panel today to talk a little bit about digital marketing. And the thing that I noticed about the other talks today is that the topic of digital marketing has been broached multiple times, but we haven't really put a bow on it. So I'd really like to address all the issues that we've kind of discussed throughout the day as it relates to e-commerce, whether that's mobile, social, search, content, or a combination of all of those. In today's talk, we're going to discuss the following topics: current trends in digital, best practices, global versus local and how they work together, and looking forward to 2016 and beyond. So, like I said, I've got a great panel here. And let's start with Sean, and give you guys the introduce yourselves.
Yeah, my name is Sean Duffy, and I'm CEO of the Duffy Agency. We have offices outside of Boston and in Sweden, Malmo, if you've heard of that. We focus on helping brands cross borders, basically developing two-year growth strategies, and then helping devise marketing strategies, including online, to a lesser extent offline, to help them achieve.
My name is Derek Edmond. Managing partner of Flow Marketing. We're an online marketing agency in Boston. We focus in search engine marketing, social media marketing, and content development, designed to support the results that we deliver for organizations in 25 continents now.
My name is Simon Hjort. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I'm originally from Denmark. I've been across living in Asia before moving to Texas, and I just want to say Texas is a wonderful place. Thank you for having us today. I work for AdPeople worldwide, which is an advertising agency that is sort of a micro network. Instead of having offices in about 50, 60 countries, we have 4 main offices. We have people from 50 different countries speaking 45 languages. So in order to be global and you have limited budget, then you can actually tap into all these people that have the local understanding of the different markets, speak the language, but still have global consistency in what you do. So very excited to be here.
Great, and kind of in that same vein, I want to continue that thought of global as it relates to e-commerce. So Simon, why don't you get us started? Share some of the trends that you're seeing in global e-commerce and which markets are growing.
So I don't know if that's the next slide. I just try to put it on so I don't ramble a lot of numbers. I think we see today that China is the big market, US is second. And then it's coming, the markets that are growing are all the emerging markets, which is interesting. That's also why it's interesting when we talk about mobile. Mobile is only used for e-commerce about less than 20% of purchase. Still, PC is the dominant thing. But when you go into the emerging markets, often some markets like India and so forth, they have more mobile devices than they have actually PCs because it's easier access. So you will see that the mobile is increasing dramatically in those areas. But it also means that when you do your websites and do everything else, it has to be mobile first. It has to work on mobile, otherwise it's not working. At the same time, you also see when you work on mobile, the social part of it is part of the purchase process. I think we'll talk about more social today, how that's used in the purchase process as well. And then we also see that actually tablets, so versus a mobile device versus a phone, generate higher sort of revenue. So there's a lot of things that are happening in that market space. What I'm focusing on is more the getting the traffic. So I think e-commerce is about having a store in the forest, and how do we actually get some people there to know about it, and how to do conversion. And our role is obviously to generate that traffic to ensure that people come to our shop and want to walk in the door and buy.
Yeah, certainly trends in terms of driving qualified leads versus just general traffic obviously is a challenge for us as marketers. Derek, talk a little bit more about mobile and adoption trends that you're seeing across the world, and then highlighting specific regions.
Yeah, so I have here on my smartphone some more numbers to give everyone. Pulling out of a SlideShare, which is another social platform, and we will, if you follow that DGM e-commerce hashtag, we'll we'll start sharing some of that information over the course of the evening for certain. But 2.2 billion active social media profiles, 3.7 unique mobile users, but I think more importantly, 1.93 billion social media profiles being accessed on mobile devices, which is 23% year-over-year growth from last year, last August 2014, and about 20% growth even from the beginning of this year. So much more adoption, more people looking at activating their social media presence and really leveraging that through the mobile device. And it's not just, in the US we think about Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and certainly there's certain users there. I mean, Facebook dominates the market. 1.4 billion users on Facebook, 700 million using the Facebook Messenger application. So just like that messaging platform. But WhatsApp, 800 million users, or 33% growth in this year alone, which is pretty amazing. WhatsApp owned by Facebook, by the way, as of beginning of 2014, and the leader in several markets across the globe. And QQ, 850 million. Another messaging application in the Chinese market, that's incredibly important as well. So certainly, the range of mobile and then social users it's important to realize that's a growing behavior.
And I think the activity level of those messenger users is also something to take into account. Even of those 1.4 billion Facebook users, I think Facebook reported last month 1 billion monthly active users on a regular basis, in addition to those WhatsApp users and customers that they use in their ad program. So obviously very robust there for Facebook. Simon, besides mobile and social, talk a little bit about global trends that you see kind of worldwide in Google.
So I think both in general in marketing, I think it's three major trends. So one of them is the big data, and what is about data. And I think we have a huge opportunity, obviously, when we talk about e-commerce and how to use the data. Both for personalization, I think a lot of the topics that's been recurring today. Personalization, you do automation, you do a lot of things with your data, but it's all about figuring out how you get the data and how you use it the right way. The second point is content. Both the content you create yourself and the content that you're able to have your audience to create for you. So the whole co-creation of content is important. That's how you get engagement and that's how you get relevance in everything that you do. And the third point is sort of the omni-channel, because what we see across many markets is obviously that the e-commerce works, but it works better when you have some kind of omni-channel, whether it's your own or with partners or whatever. So in some markets, people rely on being able to touch the product, feel the product, have somebody we have a relationship with, and that omni-channel presence, both from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, is just so important and makes a big difference.
I think too, how all three of those work together. You have your data that informs your content, that informs your omni-channel funnel, and really making sure that you're getting your customers at the right touch points.
The thing is about customer centricity, right? It's about having the customer at center and making sure that you touch them in the right way, have the right touch points, and you have the data to support that, and that helps your marketing efforts. And whether you're a small e-commerce site or you're larger, it's sort of the same principle, and the customer just needs to feel, hey, it's relevant for me. I would like to engage with this brand, and then you grow your business.
Sean, you're the only one in this group that's currently based internationally. What do you think the biggest difference is between marketing domestically versus international?
I think that the basic principles are exactly the same in every market. I think the biggest challenge is for the marketer themselves, because marketing is an imprecise science. You'll never have full access to what's in the consumer's mind. And what we do as marketers, we have to take educated guesses and risks. We fill that void with judgment calls. That works okay domestically usually, but if you're entering a foreign market, you can almost guarantee those judgment calls will be wrong. And that's where companies get in trouble when they go overseas. So it's basically, don't assume too much about the market and to test your assumptions before you go in.
That was something I think we talked about in an earlier breakout session, is the advantage of digital being able to test and get results quickly.
Absolutely.
So say you're a brand that's had some success marketing domestically. What do you need to do to take that success and translate it into international?
The hardest thing, I think, for a lot of brand managers is to, typically the brand is succeeded at home, domestically. And they're riding away with domestic success, and they want to replicate that all over the world. And the easiest thing to sell into management is, great, we'll take the strategy that worked here in the States, and we'll now apply that to Germany. Except that almost never works. I mean, one of the reasons is because the reason it worked domestically is because that strategy, and not only just the software points of positioning and strategic issues, but even what platforms you're on. That worked because that was extremely well tailored to the nuances of this market. The chances, and there's 25 different factors to consider, the chances that those 25 factors will be the same in any other country are minimal, or actually zero. So it really is starting fresh and not having assumptions. If you look at Target, who would have thought Target? It's great prices, known brands, clean stores. Going from here to Canada wouldn't seem like a really big jump, right? But it did work. And part of it, at least what I've seen in retrospect, was they didn't take into account the nuances of the Canadian market. So.
It's interesting that you said that there's so many factors that go into, up to 25, just as an example. We had a client that was seeing around 1% or 1 cent cost per click in one country, and then translated to the United States, where they're seeing over 100 times $1.50 a click on a certain social ad. The same creative, the same targeting within that country, but dramatically different results.
Absolutely.
Derek, what are some common questions that you and co-marketing get from clients looking to expand internationally?
Well, I think, the first question is just, what's going to be the return on investment? So, what are we going to get from doing this? And, the one kind of pitfall, and I certainly don't want everyone else to kind of think about, off their perspective too, is like, it's not, they immediately gravitate towards sales. How is the social media channel that I'm going to invest in going to help with my sales effort? And I think you need to think broader than that and think about all of the paths and the touch points of the sales process and dig deeper and look at how social media is going to impact, let's say, just the communication aspects, how it's going to support education for the customer or for the prospect, how maybe it's going to support different partners or different avenues of business or open up those relationships and really kind of define a broader set of performance benchmarks beyond just the sales revenue or leads that are generated as well.
Yeah, I think how important is it, when you're starting with KPIs and you have a goal and you kind of work down from there? Because I think the perception that social is a direct sales channel, or exists as like a pay-per-click or a search engine advertising, there's so many more things that you can measure, right? It's not always about community size or engagement, but what are some of the things that you guys look for when you're looking at digital campaigns in terms of KPIs?
Yeah, for us, we tie it to the overall traffic performance, but when I say that, I mean, we use social to help build organic search presence for organizations. So to bridge partnerships with publications, because the reality, a lot of our clients are in the industrial space or technology space, and sure, their customers are there, but they're not necessarily looking to buy right there. So, they're not generating that immediate transaction, but the publications are there, and the other the other people that are running complementary platforms are there. And by being able to engage with them and showcase some of what they're doing, as well as sharing industry information, we're able to create these connections for the organizations that we represent, and that leads to potentially further business development opportunities. At the very least, it can lead to content development, collaboration, that really they weren't even expecting to get when they started. And ultimately, it becomes just a facet of online PR for the organizations that are participating.
And it's funny, I'll use, I guess, Geico as an example. Nobody wakes up in the morning dreaming to interact with their insurance company on Facebook. How do you serve content in a way that's not intrusive? When you're flipping through your newsfeed, I think you have like 0.7 seconds to create an engagement. And that's challenging for some brands, I think, to get through. So education is into that process very important.
I think often you will see we have limited budget. You want to make sure that you sell something and you get the highest return on investment short term for your money. I think it's a mistake because often if you damage your brand more than anything else, you need to ensure that you create content that is relevant and engaging, because then it will come to you instead of you trying to push it to them all the time. Right? You want it to have, because then you can manage your price, you can manage all your other factors when they come to you. So instead of trying to use social media to sell, use it as an engagement tool, use it as brand awareness, use it for other things, but not necessarily just to push products. And we see too many people that just trying to tell product stories instead of telling stories that are actually relevant for people. And I think that's a general communication, but business.
I want to focus on something you mentioned about damaging the brand. And Sean, I'm going to ask you, how important, when you're thinking global, how important is translation?
Well, it's really important. I have a slide on this actually. These are like very well-known examples of translation mistakes that have been very famous all over the world. If you look up the dangers of international advertising online, this is the kind of stuff that comes up. But the truth is that this is the least damaging. As evidence, none of these brands have suffered any economic hardship. If anything, it gets the publicity for a while. It's no secret that Coca-Cola wasn't Chinese when it entered China. So doing that only helps their publicity. Anyhow, these are very visible. The things that really hurt companies are the things that you can't see. And those are things that really erode market share and erode margins. I think to your point, when you're going in, a lot of companies are so focused on sales, they're thinking really short term. Getting sales actually in a foreign market isn't so hard. What's super hard in a foreign market is getting two other things. The first is premium margin. And unless you're positioned as a premium brand and are better than the average product in that market, your prices eventually will be driven down to that level. And the second is brand equity. Building brand equity so that it gets easier and easier going on to sell. And if you try to do the three things at once, which is really hard, then I think the role of social takes a whole different play. And you can see the return you're getting in a different way.
And social is about trust. So, that type of building that relationship, that doesn't happen, with one ad campaign or just one communication blast. It happens over time. For some organizations we talk to, I was talking about it yesterday on the roundtable. It's just, sometimes just having your professional presence there and not really worrying about forcing the communication is really the way to start. But get the information correct. Make sure that you have your message, translated or not, is effective but also appropriate. And then start, as have your brand there present, and then as you understand the communities and you understand the platforms you're working in, you can start to begin the communication process.
Yeah, I think that's an opportunity when you actually want to work with your brand, then you get opt-in, for then you start communicating on different channels, email and whatnot, right? And then you can, and again, then you ask them what you want to know, what are you interested in, and then you can target your communication. So again, you're at the right time with the right methods and so forth, which is so easy to say, it's the difficult thing to execute. But now with data and with the automation and everything else, you can actually do a lot of things in that area. That makes much more sense than trying to push it out in the wrong channels.
The reality too is if you just start really small, just get your foundation correct, a lot of times, and that's an easy sell to leadership because you didn't invest a lot of time. You got everything accurate, maybe you invested a day or so to get things situated correctly, you put the right graphics, you have your logo and your branding, and you worked on translation to get that communication in place. One of our clients, for instance, we had a Facebook page that was just concisely done and then organically grew for them. Because it was a fairly recognizable brand, and it started generating this engagement for them before they, without any effort. And then we realized that, we need to nurture this community. So, it was an easier sell once we actually had built this thing that only took a few hours at first, but had it done correctly at the start. To then start, we'll start investing in more communication strategies. We'll start tackling this more on a weekly basis, not on a daily basis, and even then on an hour basis.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important from a channel prioritization standpoint. Figure out what your goal is. Go in, build your platforms, like you said, make sure they're optimized, check all your boxes, and then you can start getting into the stuff down the road that Simon was mentioning, where you've got email automation and you're using them all cohesively as a sort of customer life cycle, and you can nurture that relationship down the line. Simon, when you go international, how much localization and personalization do you look for in terms of the website when you're talking to different audiences throughout the world?
So, I don't know how many people are familiar with the term transcreation. So transcreation is a thing of translate and create. But it all starts with the starting point. As you said before, it doesn't start with, we have a US campaign, let's roll it out. If you have to do it right, you do a global campaign. Think about how will the global platform work in all the markets you're in. That's the starting point. And then you can adapt it to the US, you can adapt it to Europe. And again, Europe is not one country, it's a lot of different countries. So often you need to differentiate between Northern Europe, Southern Europe, whatever, more than just the language-wise, because you can have different market position, you can have different brand perception, there's a lot of different things that play, and again, it depends on the size of your company, your budget, and all that, right? But if you start with the global concept, or the global idea, and then adapt it to the different markets you're in, you're at a good spot, right? So some markets, they can live with English, some they can't. I mean, that's a lot of markets, even though say, but look, a lot of our clients speak English, but at the end of the day, they prefer to have it in local language. Also because you're competing, you have to remember you're competing with a lot of different people that are in the local market, right? That's your competition. And if you are not as relevant, or you're more difficult to do business with, then you don't get the business. So I think that the localization part of it is important. I have examples of global campaigns that was created by a Canadian agency, and the theme was ice hockey. Doesn't really play well in a lot of countries in Asia where they hardly know what ice hockey is, right? So think about using concepts that are universal. Doesn't mean that it's the lowest common denominator, because you can find concepts that are ideas that are working across a lot of markets. But you have to think about, because will that work? And then you have to agree in the company, how much do we want to adapt to the things we're doing? How much freedom do we have to go off just saying, oh, I just translate, I use the same imagery or whatever. But that doesn't work, right? I mean, even if you say, oh, I want to use Asian people for Asian market, it's very different between Korea, China, and Japan. You cannot always use the same image. It's different, they look different, they are different people. And we look at it here in the US, it's like, that doesn't matter, yes, it matters a lot. So there are so many nuances you need to consider when you work on a global level.
I think too, in terms of competition, getting out of just competition as your competitive set, but specifically in a news feed where you're trying to advertise on whether it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, you're competing against your mother-in-law, you're competing against brands that you like, your friends. Those are being served to you along with the brand content that you have advertised. And if you're doing a good job with your target profiles and your ad targeting, you still have to compete against the baby pictures and wedding photos. And so how can you attract attention in that short amount of time? You have to make sure that your translation is right, that your imagery and your creative are on target. Sean talked a little bit about the difference between internet access globally and devices. What other roles is that playing now in terms of international?
I think a lot of people will say, our brand's already international, we're on the internet, and there's 3 billion people connected to the internet. But access doesn't necessarily mean you're going to build brand equity or have a premium price level. Maybe sales, but even there. I think that the internet for small to mid-sized companies has been huge, even more so than with bigger companies, because it's evening the playing field. It is possible for you today, if you want to try another market, with a relatively smaller investment that you can actually go out, first of all, just get data on that market at a really reasonable price of good data by listening. And secondly, you can try it out with each shop and just see how it goes as a test, which would have been really difficult to do 10 years or 20 years ago. The second is, I think if you look at the 4 classic growth strategies, they've all been, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this, it's kind of a complicated topic perhaps for today, but all 4 of them have been radically changed by the internet and in favor of small and mid-sized business. If an easy example, if you look at HR Block, the strategy of providing existing services or existing products to new markets. They're now offering a thing called H&R Block Export. So they have no offices in Sweden, for instance, but I can still have them do my tax return from Sweden because we can do it online. And that's allowed them to actually reach out to a whole other segment, which are expats all over the world, to get their tax returns done.
That's really interesting in terms of scalability. We talked a lot about in a couple of the breakout sessions, and I think we have another question later. The scalability of digital. You don't have to have a huge budget. It's not like a giant TV spot or investing months in a creative campaign. You can go and test relatively quickly and easily.
At least you can prime the pump so that you can get the big budgets to do it.
And I think the testing is important. I think a lot of people tend to forget to test because now they are eager to get it out. But if you don't take 10% of your budget or whatever, I recommend to take 10% of your budget, say it that way, to make sure that you do A/B testing of different things, right? Figure out what is it that actually makes a difference. Is it the product? Is it the price? Is it the trade-in? Because they always say, oh, my email doesn't work, now we change everything. But if you don't know what's not working, then you'll never figure it out. So make sure that you do proper testing, have a test roadmap, figure out, okay, this week, this for this last, I test this particular thing, and it can be creative, it can be the message, it can be the subject line, it can be whatever, right? But doing that, you will keep optimizing your budget and optimizing the way you do marketing, and you will learn from it. And it's fine that you figure out, oh, that didn't actually work, because then you'll not do it again. But I think that the testing part is very important. And again, it works different from country to country. It might work in one country, but not in another country.
Sean, in a recent blog that you wrote, you said that entering a new market is like walking into a dark room. Give us a little bit more context around that.
I think we should all expect more in entering a new market, just to get rid of our assumptions. And what happens if it's a bright sunny day and you all of a sudden open the door, walk into a dark room? Anybody?
Blinded.
You're blinded, you can't see. It's pretty much the same thing we see when companies go into new markets. They come from their domestic fresh market, and they walk into this dark room, and they can't see anything. And the only thing is they're not alone in that room, because they're competitors, and they have sticks, and they don't like you. And they're really happy to trip you up. It's really important to in a metaphor sense, that they condition your eyes, and even more importantly, have someone who can give you a flashlight. And that's basically what you will be doing. And I was really happy to hear, talking to different expertise, logistics people, legal people, saying that, I said, what do you really help your clients with when they're going overseas? And he said, it all comes down to risk reduction. And that's really with marketing. It's understanding the market well enough that you just reduce the risk so that you don't trip up.
Fantastic. Sometimes you can do all the prep you want and still trip up. Derek, what are some pitfalls that you've maybe seen organizations make, maybe mistakes, overlooking some of that dark room metaphorical thinking?
Yeah, well, not necessarily a mistake, but just sort of piggybacking off what Sean just said, we have organizations that are looking to enter, a new market. A few things. First off, I think now a mistake is to not think mobile first. So that's kind of like a big one now. It's, for a lot of markets, certainly in Asia, South America, how does your landing experience, whatever you're doing, look on the mobile device on your smartphone? Can people get to the information? Can they get to the right call to action, or whatever sort of conversion action you want for the site? That's critical. I guess I read off a bunch of mistakes, but not thinking about translation or effective, or relying on something like Google Translate. But most people here, I think, that I've seen in these audiences know about that for certain. But the other thing too is, we've seen clients, they pick, particularly on the e-commerce side, they pick specific product lines that they think are going to work. They might not go in with their entire e-commerce catalog. They'll go in with a category. And they might not even initiate e-commerce first. It might just be phone calls or chat. For instance, in China, it seems people, more people want to use the chat function. They're not going to just buy right there through that organization. So you test different types of conversions. The point being is you don't necessarily have to reconstruct the entire experience. Start small and then build as you figure out either some of the mistakes or hopefully you enjoy some of the successes in executing that strategy.
And I think, when we're talking about results, I know for a social media manager or a digital marketer that conversation with your boss is what is digital doing for me right now? That's always looming sort of over it's no longer a test environment, it's no longer just a cool, fun thing. You need to see results. How can organizations measure the impact of their social activities? We'll start with Derek and kind of go around.
I was just saying on the social side too, another mistake is they just, company has like 20 different profiles. They think that they need to be in every single one, and that's almost never the case. You can pick a few and really invest there, or even just set your baseline again, let's see what kind of sticks and where you feel you're gonna have the most opportunity down the road. And then the question was, measuring it, is that right? So, Google Analytics, or if you're using some sort of web reporting tool, that's gonna be your best friend when it comes to some of this stuff. How is that channel, that referral channel, working for your organization? But then just beyond that, for us, again, we use social in many ways to connect with other influencers and publishers and those type of things. So we do a lot of analysis on the actual network itself. People think about the page or the profile and the branding, and then they're concerned about the communication strategies for certain and how they resonate across audiences. But you really want to understand, even if you have to do it manually to an extent, who are the people that we're connecting to and how valuable are they for my organization, either hopefully as a customer or a prospect, but potentially as a publication or a partner that might be there down the road or something of that nature. And those are critical things that you can show, even if you don't get that sales revenue initially, that you're building these relationships. And that's really a key part of what social is about.
I think it's also a question about not only talk about quantity, but about quality, right? So it's better to have 5,000 amazing ambassadors that likes your website or likes your Facebook page and 20,000 that just say yes, but they don't do anything and they don't share anything. So we make sure that you tell the story to the people that actually want to resonate. It's all about relevance, right? That's relevant for them, and if they like that story, then they start sharing, and then, that smaller quantity can give you so much more, amplifying that much more than if you just have a high volume that doesn't do anything.
And I think it's important to temper your expectations now as well. You can have a 100,000 member community, but you have to know that organically only 1% maybe is going to see anything, and then another 0.5% of those are going to engage with your content that you're putting out. It's just the nature of the beast. There's so much competition out there, especially within Facebook. So it's just that much more important to build the community with brand ambassadors, like you said. What tools and resources? I know we mentioned Google Analytics. Anything else that you guys use to help scale and execute social programs?
Yeah, so Hootsuite, Hootsuite, has been really important for us in terms of managing organizations' profiles, scheduling updates. One thing that is challenging and daunting for people is I have to be on this 24/7 or every day. Well, it helps you to get that scheduling out, so you don't have to be logged in. Certainly to multiple things, but you can log into one, you can schedule out what you want, and not worry about it, at least for that particular time. It also helps you monitor different, perhaps, segments of your audience for certain. Google Analytics is obviously important. BuzzSumo is another, BUZZSUMO is another application tool we use. There's a free version as well as a commercial version. And what's kind of nice about that is you can check not just your own site, but your competitors' sites and how they're doing within popular social media platforms. How many people are sharing the content, and arguably more importantly, who. So you can drill into, what users actually share this material, let's say on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, which is really good to see. Then you can start building your targeted list of people that you realize you need to reach out to or to acknowledge or even just to specifically target for a campaign purpose.
I think those are especially important for small and medium businesses where your social media manager also has to do email marketing or event marketing or any other or a bunch of different ads, trying to find that optimization. You guys, anything to add on the tools?
I mean, for us, the tools are important as long as they can cross borders. So I think one thing you have to look for, especially if you're tracking keywords, is, and you can't really use Google Translate for this, the local slang is typically how people learn your words in the keyword, is to really be sure in the local markets that you've got the right keywords to monitor.
And I think, if you see the technology stack of technology companies that are coming every year, that is growing and growing and growing, everybody has some specific, and I think it's important that you consider, okay, so how do they all play together? Because if it's all in silos and it's not playing, then you don't get that holistic view of your customers, then it becomes a bit more tricky. So there's a lot of people that develop all kinds of cool tools. We need to make sure that they actually can play together.
I wrote down a couple of resources. Certainly people can just search for Google's mobile-friendly testing tool. It's a free resource. You can plug in a web page on the mobile side and see, how your site or your competitor looks on the mobile device. Another one is Responsinator, RESPONSINATOR. So that application, you can plug in a web page, and then you can test how the site looks in different types of browser settings as well.
Yeah, I think that's especially important now. I believe it's like April 21st, Google's stopped showing in mobile search results sites that were not mobile responsive. So Google, in an effort to improve their mobile search experience, if your site's not mobile responsive, it won't show up in mobile search.
I think things are changing rapidly in the space, right? Until recently, you could have flash banners showing on websites, and suddenly a browser said we will not show flash banners after HTML5 banners. And this is very technical, because you need to develop this, but it means that if you see a lot of your customers are using those browsers, they don't see your ads if you have to play ads, right? So you need to ensure that you follow up with the changes. That's the interesting thing about digital, is keep changing all the time, and it's not like, in 2 years we'll change that. It was just like, in a month from now, then we'll not show this. So you need to keep up with the latest things and again, some of it's across borders, and some it's for each country because it has different regulations. But this HTML5 was just a browser thing, so that's global.
There's a site out there, an agency, builtvisible.com. If you just look for that site, but then Baidu-SEO-guide. They put together a great list of curated resources talking about Baidu and some of the analytics information you can get, some of the applications that they're offering. Certainly, if you're marketing in China, it's a critical resource, I think.
Yeah, I think thinkwithgoogle.com is also a great publication, good email subscription to get if you're out there looking for really up-to-date information on the industry. Simon, we talked a lot today about global to local and expanding in international markets. That's great for big brands. How do you do that on a shoestring budget?
I hope I have the answer. I think it's all about ambition level, right? So we heard today about we take the passive away and see what comes into us, and we don't do anything actively in those markets. And I think that's a starting point, right? If you want to do it right, then you need to focus on certain markets where you have the biggest opportunities. Because if you spread out too much, you don't do anything right. I think it's about being right in the market you are in, because you have it's highly competitive, and you need to be able to stand out from the other competitors. So how do you do that? Obviously, you look at, okay, so what's my target audience? How do I reach them in the best possible way, both in your media buying and your creative and whatnot. And if you say, okay, I will use basic social or search and whatever, that's probably the starting point. But then, how are you building your brand? How are you engaging? How do you do that? And then that's where you have to figure out, okay, so how much do you want to invest? Do I do it centrally? Do I have partners? What do I do? And so there are different models you can use, right? You can do it from a central perspective. You can have local to do it in each market, and that's not one way that is more right than the other. It really depends on where you are and also on some of the ambition that you have.
The thing I'd add to that is certainly start small. You have small budget, obviously, but consistency. So even if it was a small budget, you still need to set a cadence for what you're doing. A lot of we see organizations, they get really amped up to get into this, and they do a lot for let's say 2 weeks, and then they're just completely quiet for 6 months. Then they amp up again, and then they're wondering, why did anything happen? No one paid attention. Well, you need to again develop that relationship. So even if you can only do that, once a week or a few times a week, but maybe a couple minutes each day, try to set up a schedule, use an editorial calendar, for example. Put reminders in your own calendar or someone's calendar. This is when you should go get this stuff scheduled. Use applications that allow you to schedule information, so you have that consistent voice out there, as opposed to just this blast of information and then you're quiet. No matter what you know, across any market.
Yeah, I think especially when you think of a small business with limited resources, where you are is almost as important as where you are, and trying to be strategic and what are we going to do and do well versus trying to do everything and letting it fall off.
I think it's also understanding your market, right? So here, Black Friday, Cyber Monday has become one of the biggest selling seasons, but that doesn't exist in other places. So they're trying a little bit. So if you're Chinese New Year is probably one of the biggest seasons, right? You're understanding that Diwali in India, whatever, all the different seasons. Figure out, okay, so when are those using those to be part of the culture so it feels natural and benefit from that? That's obviously important.
I think it comes back to a point you made earlier about deciding what markets. I think our opening discussion with most clients is they want to get into Europe or they want to get into Asia. Asia is 48 countries, Europe is 50 countries, EU is 26 countries. There's no such thing as, from a consumer perspective, there's no such thing as Europe, Asia. The best one is EMEA. We want an EMEA strategy. So if you were to poll a bunch of people and say, could all the EMEAns please stand up here? I'd just like to know who you are. There's no such thing. I don't know if I have a slide on this. Is there another slide? This is basically how we look at building an online infrastructure. And you're okay to go global. The next two levels, I don't know if you can read that, regional or sub-regional, EMEA or Northern Europe, for instance, they typically don't work because no one can relate to them, and the content won't be relating to them, it'll be relating to a broader category that they don't see themselves a part of. If you go below that, you get to national, that's great. Okay, this is for French people. The next level of that is provincial. This is for Parisians. Aha, now you're getting close. That's me. And the ideal actually would be the last, which is personal, which is something that Amazon does pretty well. They personalize the experience. So I think that's really important, setting up these structures.
And that's where an editorial calendar makes a lot of sense. You want to know, especially in foreign markets, what holidays, what events are going to be happening. In social, we prepare. We know we have an organization, we know their event schedule, we know what they're coming out with from a publication perspective. And you're preparing for that, hopefully months in advance, but typically what happens is, when people start is, they have something that comes out and they just, they use social to blast it out, but then they don't understand why no one picked it up. you're building those relationships well in advance, even if it's just through small, consistent communication to start. So people are they were around, all right, okay, I remember that, and then hopefully they can check it out, even if it's just a very small communication strategy.
And I think when you do this well, and you're really marketing to individuals, and you have your customer personas, and you build your marketing calendar around that in your campaigns, it also leaves you open for that little niche of real time. When what really matters to my individuals right now that I can attach some brand messaging to, and that's where people start to throw around the V word and try to go viral with their stuff, which I try to coach people away from as much as possible. But you really can find those little moments that really matter to those people by listening, really knowing who they are. And in that realm, like when you're choosing a partner for your brand to go international, somebody who knows these people, these individuals, what are some of the things to think about when you're going and selecting those partners? That's anyone.
So I think it's again, you need to figure out, do you want to have a central approach that use different partners, or do you want a local approach? Because at the end of the day, you need to have brand consistency. Doesn't mean that your brand is the same everywhere and says the same thing and looks exactly the same. And of course, logo and all these things are the same. I'm talking about the voice, the tone, the style, the whatever, right? So you can choose to have local partners that are working on the local market and do it and then rolling up. Or you can say, okay, we're going to have a central partner that is helping rolling it out to the markets, right? And the one is more expensive if you go from the local market, but you have more local, it's easier and you have more local relevance often. But it's harder to control your brand consistency and it's more expensive, right? So Coke is doing it and other people are doing it like that. And then you have others that are more central approach, saying you want to control it from a center and we want to roll it out. And then you use different partners that can help you. Again, it's not about translation that we now in the local language. You need to understand the local culture, the local nuances, both from a language and cultural perspective, but also from a business perspective. How are we doing business? Who are, how are our competitors doing? What are they saying? If you don't have all that, then you just put something out there and hope for the best. You need to be strategic about it and figure out, okay, so how do we actually believe that we can approach the market in the best possible way?
I think the thing to do too is beyond just the individual tactics. You want to make sure that partner understands your organization and your business strategy and can at least articulate at a high level how they're going to apply that to whatever market they're looking to target. And that's important. What are the performance benchmarks you're going to be tasked with? They don't have to get too specific, they don't have to reveal everything. But what are some of the examples of things they're going to do? And then the good thing about people here is that with the resources with U.S. Commercial Service, you can potentially just bring that back. I might just give people more work, but you can bring it back and say, hey, this is what they're telling me makes sense in this market. Does it make sense to you based on what you know? And then you'll get that additional perspective on this side.
Just one thing, what I think we've seen across the globe is that social media is still new to organization. And then you put like the intern or the young people that understand social media to control your social media. And I just want to say that's a danger. Because it's fine that they understand social media, but if they don't understand your business strategy and they understand where we're heading and what it is, then you're giving sort of your brand to some kids that are smart, but you're giving them their hands to control it to a big audience. And that's a bit scary sometimes.